What's going on, guys? Welcome to the LowKick MMA UFC Fight Night Munoz versus Edgar card breakdown preview show. Almost forgot what this one was called. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, and joining me is Jordan Ellis. How you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing good. How are
Not
you
too
doing?
bad. This event this weekend, probably one of the most underwhelming events we've had of recent time. At the moment, there's only 4 fights confirmed for the main card, and aside from the main event, pretty lackluster fights. I know that Romero versus Hall was meant to be the co-main on this one, but that fell through after Romero got injured. So after that come off the card, it's just not really one of the better cards for sure. What do you think of it?
No, it's not great, but it's just the times we're in. We're getting cards every week, and as Dana White's so often saying, he needs to get these fighters, or he owes them 3 fights a year. So he's just got to get people out. And Munoz and Edgar has been bounced about. I think it was meant to be July 15th, and then it was somewhere else and somewhere else. And this is basically seems to me like a card of just people clumbled together just to make something happen. Um, but still excited to watch it. It's a good main event, and then there's a couple of fighters I'm interested to see on the undercard. So it's not all bad. It's good for fight fans.
Yeah, I mean, any fights is good fights, right? When we had that stint of a month with no fights, everyone was clawing to get any event. So at least we got this one. The main event, obviously, Pedro Munoz versus Frankie Edgar. A fight that's been rescheduled twice now, I believe. And we finally get to see it this coming weekend. I believe it's Edgar's bantamweight debut. Yeah, it would be. Obviously, to get number 5 for your debut, you got to be happy about that one, right? I know that some other names were thrown in when Munoz couldn't make the fight against Simon Fight Island. So for him to get this one against number 5, if he gets the W here, it could put him in really good standings. He could be a future title contender after like 1 or 2 fights. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the perfect fight for Edgar to introduce himself to the division. It's the guy with the top name, but I don't think he's not unbeatable. I think Pedro Munoz is a very nice fight to introduce yourself. He's not the biggest guy at bantamweight. I think Edgar, may even have a bit of size on him. I'm not sure. We'll see on the night, but he's obviously very talented, Munoz. But I think like if Edgar's gonna propel himself towards a title shot, this is a nice way to do it. A nice highly ranked guy who I don't think is, he's not on Sterling's level in my opinion, or guys like that. So it's not the toughest fight either.
I think for Edgar, this is a really tough fight, and I think we're going to see Munoz get the win here. Just because if I break down the fight technically, I think Edgar's probably got the wrestling advantage, but in terms of grappling, as in jiu-jitsu, I'd probably say Munoz is better. And a striker, I think Munoz is better, just because we've seen Edgar get caught recently, right? So you don't know how much damage you can take. And Munoz, he throws hook after hook, but if those hooks land, like, you're going out. So I really do favour Munoz big in this one against Edgar, and I don't even know if he stays at the division. We'll see what he wants to do if he does lose.
No, he's been very hesitant about this drop, Edgar. It was meant to happen last year, and he's kind of dragged it out. So I don't know whether he thinks he can still compete with the featherweights, or he doesn't fancy the cut, or it'll be interesting to see him because it's probably where he should have been all along. He's somehow became a lightweight champion, and now he's down at bantamweight. It's a bit crazy because the featherweights were too big for him, and that's why you were seeing him getting knocked out. So it's one of them interesting ones where you kind of just sit back and you enjoy the fight more than anything, just because you don't know what you're gonna get from Edgar. It's a new weight class, it's a new cut. Will the chin hold will it get stronger if anything, or will he be able to take more from someone like Munoz, who we've seen's got power? I do edge Edgar. I just think he's still, although he hasn't been impressive lately, he still just manages to pick up big wins. So like it was Cub Swanson, before that was Jair Rodriguez, and these are a couple of years ago. But he's only lost to Max Holloway and Korean Zombie. So it's the top of the heap at 145. So. Do I think Munoz is the top of the heat at 135? I really don't. So, yeah, I'd expect Edgar to get by him, and if he doesn't get by him, I think that might be him done, because I don't really see where he goes from there. I don't see will he go back up, and what's the point of going back up? Because obviously he can't compete with the top guys. Could he even go down to 125? I'm not sure. That would be the only other option. It would just it's an interesting spot Edgar's found himself in, and he is coming to, towards the end of his career. So maybe he can have one more last run, or maybe this is it. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, he hadn't been finished for a long time if he had been finished before Ortega got him. And then Ortega knocked him out. Then he fought Holloway and he got outpointed. And then Zombie knocked him out, so I don't. He's clearly durable, but how durable? And I mean, someone like, I know a lot of people call him a glass jaw, but Cody Garbrandt, he got into a firefight with Pedro Munoz and got caught and put out like quite easily, and that was a pretty devastating knockout too. So I think Edgar's going to have to try and steer away from these like fighting in a phone booth, boxing stand-up exchanges. He's going to have to try and rely on his wrestling, or if he's longer, I haven't looked at the stats, but if he's the longer guy, maybe it's a good idea to stay at range and try and keep him off you, because in range, I think Munoz puts him out. And if he uses his wrestling, Munoz has a really solid guillotine, so he might end up with his neck inside a guillotine, if I can speak.
I think wrestling's the way to go with it. Obviously, when you get older and the chin maybe does deteriorate a bit. We're not assuming that's what's happened to Edgar, but let's just say, it may be it may be getting a bit worse. You can still win fights and negotiate fights. We've seen Alistair Overeem doing. He's changed his style. He does wrestle a bit more. He's heavy on top and he still picks up big wins. So there's no need for Edgar to be getting in a scrap. He can literally just wrestle his way to victory in this one. And as impressive as jiu-jitsu is, a lot of the time wrestlers are able to break it down and still dominate the fight on top, even with people who are really talented jiu-jitsu players. So there is routes to victory for Edgar. It's not an unwinnable fight. It's not the toughest fight ever. When I seen him matched up against Corey Sandhagen originally, I thought that was a tough fight, and Edgar, even though he was dropping down, was giving up size and things like that. So this is a nicer fight. I think it's winnable, and I think Edgar, if he wins this, might even get a title shot. The UFC has seemed like intent on overlooking Sterling, so Edgar's a name. They love giving him a title shot. He's the Holly Holm of the the male divisions, and he gets a lot. And I think he could end up getting another one with a win here, depending on how good he looks.
I can't see that happening. I mean, number 5, he's still got a lot of people in front of him. I think they're would be more inclined to give Sandhagen a title shot, even coming off a loss, than give Frankie Edgar one. Munoz, on the other hand, if he gets a win here, you got to give him a top 2 guy, like a top 2 or 3, right? You got to give him someone high. He's taking someone under him here. If he wins this convincingly, you got to give him someone higher. And who's he fought and lost? He's lost to Aljamain. Outside of that, I don't know he's lost to any other guys above him. So, there's plenty of names for him. Anyway, we'll move on to the co-main event. Sees Ovince St. Preux move back down to light heavyweight after his heavyweight debut didn't go how he planned. And taking on Alonzo Menafield, who I believe has his only loss in the UFC in his last fight, if it was his last fight.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. But, this one's a pretty interesting fight. I don't know how this one goes. St. Preux's a better kicker. St. Preux's got a better kicking game in general. He's got that high kick he's fantastic at. He's got that one submission, Von Flute choke he's fantastic at. He's probably a better grappler than Menafield with all things said, but I don't think it'll be much of a grappling fight. Whereas Menafield's got the heavier hands, and he's probably the more aggressive fighter. He's probably going to be the one coming forward. Can St. Preux land a big counter? I don't know. That's the interesting intrigue for me in this fight. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm very happy to see OSP back down at the light heavy, because he looked terrible at heavyweight, and he looked almost scared of Ben Rothwell, and Ben Rothwell's a good fighter, but he's not one of the top guys in the division, so there was no future for him in that, because every time Rothwell come near him, he looked a bit, intimidated, and that's obviously not what you want. I really do like this fight for both guys, really. I think it's a really well matched fight, and it'll be interesting to see how Alonzo bounces back, because before that he was looking like a bit of a monster. He's knocking out guys like Paul Craig, who's just got a big win himself, and then he's fighting Shogun now, so he's no pushover or anything like that. But just looking back to the UFC 250, I think it was a really good fight, and I just think I remember him getting quite tired, so hopefully he's worked on that side of things, and he's able to come through with adversity. So while he lost the decision, he got them 3 rounds in. He didn't look awful, and he can come back, but it's not going to be that easy to get St. Preux out there either. So he's got to be, maybe a bit smarter with how much power he's throwing, because not everyone falls down, and I think that's just a lesson he's learning now. And OSB is a veteran in the game. There's not much to say about him, really. At the minute, he seems to be trading wins and losses, and he's at a funny spot in his career. he's no longer a top contender in my opinion. So interested to see how he does in this one. I think it's a well matched fight.
Yeah, it's definitely a well-matched fight. I'm interested to see how OSP looks, right? Because he didn't look good at heavyweight. And is that a problem because he was bigger? Because he looked slow at heavyweight. And he also wasn't putting the foot on the gas. He was just happy to cruise through it and not do a lot. I don't know if that's a problem with his like mental going into that. Maybe he thought, I don't want to get hit by this bigger guy. I don't know what factors were for that one, but he didn't look like himself, did he? So hopefully come back down. We see him more active, more agile, I guess. Hopefully use his whole skill set as well. I don't really want to see a boxing match between these two because I think Menifield probably wins that. But we'll see. Interesting fight. Before that is another light heavyweight bout, which probably should belong on the prelims in my opinion. I don't understand why these two fighters are on a main card, but anyway, Marcin Prashnio versus Mike Rodriguez. Both guys, I think they're coming off a loss from memory. Maybe I am wrong. But, they're not top of the range light heavyweights. I don't understand why they've been pushed to the main card, but, good showcase for them. If one of these guys can come out there and do something big, this is going to give them a lot more spotlight than you'd probably imagine for a fight like this. As far as the matchup goes, I think Rodriguez is the better boxer. I think Rodriguez is probably the better fighter. And I see him winning. It'll probably just be a stand-up fight. What do you think?
Yeah, it's both guys who I'm not, overly familiar. Obviously, I know a bit about Rodriguez. I've seen him fight a few times, but I don't know too much about either guy, and I wouldn't really feel confident giving a massive pick because, as you said, I don't think either of them belongs on this type of like this high up a card. It's a bit confusing to me, especially when you've got a few good names on the undercard in good fights. They're both on losing streaks. I think they're both on a couple of losing streaks. I'd probably give Prachnio the edge just because he's come through one championship and he's got a few wins there, and that's a high level of fighting. Whereas Rodriguez hasn't, come up that way, and he's come through the contender series, and then every time he seems to be tested in the UFC, he's lost. Devin Clark, there's no shame in that, but the last two, he's lost us also. So, and I wouldn't say they're top guys either. So, I think this is one of them where it's a good fight and it's a big fight because I think both guys are fighting for the UFC career now. Whoever's going 3 in a row here is probably not going to get another one. So, yeah. His only UFC win is against Adam Milstead, and I don't like that's an introductory guy, isn't it? Really, let's be honest. It's interesting. Let's see who gets the win and let's see who stays in UFC because I don't think the loser will be.
Yeah, well, I can't justify picking what's his name, Marcin in this one just because I watched his fight with Sam Alvey and it didn't look like he knew how to fight. His fight IQ was so low. He was marching forward. He got tagged and put down. He got straight back up and just marched forward, hands down, and just got put out, So, and then I haven't seen his fight against Magomed Ankalaev, but I'm looking at the result here. And it was a first round knockout. So I'm probably, as little as I know about Rodriguez as well, I think I'm going to take him in this one. And, they're probably both going to go out there and throw big shots, and we'll see who lands first, right?
Maybe that's why it's on the main card. Maybe the UFC brass knows something we don't, and it's going to be a super fun fight, and they're both just going to, try and take each other out. So that'll be fun. Yeah, I'm giving the edge to Prachnio just because of his background in one, and he's had a few good wins there. And Rodriguez just hasn't, he hasn't stepped up to the plate yet, but it's time to do it now, isn't it?
For sure. The opening bout on the main card, the short main card, only 4 fights. Surely they bump something up, but we'll see. Anyway, Daniel Rodriguez versus Takashi Sato. Another firefight. I think this will probably be fight of the night. Both guys like a brawl. So I'll throw this one to you to break down first. What do you think?
See, again, this is another one where I'm not really too sure on either fighter. Like I feel as much as UFC as I watch, I don't know enough about these guys to actually give a prediction. So it's a tough spot we're in today. What weight is it?
It's at welterweight.
Welterweight.
Rodriguez beat who did he beat? Tim Means, right? Recently.
Yeah. So if you beat Team Means, that's give me enough to to back you against someone like Sato. I've seen Sato a few times where he's looked good against certain guys, but he struggled a little bit. He got beat by Muhammad, and Yeah, so there's not much really I can say about this one other than I probably give Daniel Rodriguez the edge just because he's beat Tim Means.
In terms of ability, I think the biggest factor in this one is probably going to be the gas tank. I mean, we saw Rodriguez gas out in the later, towards the end of his last fight. So I haven't seen Sato gas out yet. Even when he's been unsuccessful, he hasn't really showed fatigue. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't really, in terms of technical striking or whatever, I haven't really broken the fight down. So I don't have a solid pick here either. I'm going to be honest with that one. But yeah, I'd probably lean Rodriguez as well, just because that Tim Means win, right? That's a big name, and if you can get through him, probably get through these lower level welterweight guys as well.
He's also on a bit of a tear. He hasn't lost since 2017. He's won a bunch of fights in a row, and so I'd imagine he's a big favourite going into this one because he's on a tear. He's beat Tim Means, beat Gabe Green, and then you've got Takashi Sato. So I'd imagine he's the favourite. Hopefully, again, the UFC brass know a bit more than us, and they've matched a great fight, and that's why it's on the card, on the main card. I don't really agree with it. I think there's a couple of other fights. You've got your Austin Hubbards and your Mir Agapovas on the undercard where I think they should be bumped up because they are good names and the potential stars. So I think we should be pushing them.
Yeah, well, with that, do you want to jump onto some of the prelim fights before we get onto the news?
Yeah, yeah. First things first, Austin Hubbard. He seems to be one of the guys who's he's capitalising on this whole Corona thing. This is a quick turnaround. He fought in July, and obviously he stopped Max Roshkov, and that was on his stool. So that went viral, and although it went viral for him, it was his damage that caused that reaction. So I think a few more eyes will be on this fight now. And so far in his UFC career, he's traded wins. He's won one, lost one, things like that. And it's time for him to start putting some momentum together. I think this is a good chance. 28 year old. He's in a good spot, in a winnable fight, and I think he might do it.
Yeah, and I think the matchup that I'm most excited to see on this card, outside the main and co-main event, is Maria Agapova versus Shana Dobson. Just because when I didn't know who Agapova was, she went out there and just put on a performance. So hopefully we get to see something like that again. What do you think of that fight?
Yeah, and I'm super excited. When she last fought, I'm fully on the train. As soon as I watched it, she's 23, she's fighting like that. Poor Hannah Cyphers, I think she got back-to-back murderers, and it was it was a bit mean from the UFC to do that to her. But yeah, Agapova is one to watch, and I don't get why she's not on the main card. There was two fights we just spoke there, and we struggled to break down. She's a 23-year-old, woman coming through, and she's looking, she looks sensational in her debut. If Sean O'Malley can be calling a main event at UFC 52 on a massive pay-per-view, there's no reason why Agapova can't just get a little main card push on a bog standard fight night. And I know she's European, and I'm not even sure if she speaks English, but the talent speaks for itself, and I think sometimes it's not about giving grief on social media and chatting madness. Sometimes it's just about pure talent, and she was very talented, and actually she can't speak English because I remember she was very chatty in a post-fight interview.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think she should be getting a push, and I'm just happy to see a fight, but I do feel like she should be getting more of a push.
For sure, I agree. And with that, I think we'll wrap up the card there and move on to some news. Obviously, the biggest news of this week, Jon Jones coming out and saying he's going to vacate the light heavyweight title. Actually doing it, not just coming out saying he actually vacated the light heavyweight title. And he said, I will stay prepared. I'll stay in the USADA testing pool for the next 6 months with the hopes of getting a fight at heavyweight for the right money. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's great. I think all signs point to, this happening now. I think he's already been on the phone with the UFC speaking about it. I think, as me and you have said previously, I don't think the money, he's earning good money anyway. I don't think he wants that much more. I don't think it's that much of an issue. I think maybe Dana White just rubbed him the wrong way by calling him a liar. I do think the UFC and Jon Jones have been pretty tight for most of this. So I'm very hopeful he can get a fight sorted. It's just who he fights, and when he fights, does he go straight into the title shot? Does he, get a nice little warm up fight? it's interesting times now, but I'm very excited to see it happening. And with that, you get the rebirth of the light heavyweight division, and it's exciting again. Because John Jones has been, easily handling people. Um, well, not easily because of the decisions, but he's been in cruise control basically for a while, and no one wants to see that. So it's gonna be great to have Reyes and Blachowicz, two hungry contenders, going at it for a belt over 5 rounds. So it's a win-win, and for me as a fan, definitely.
It's a shame for all those light heavyweights because there's always going to be that asterisk now that John Jones left the division when he was undefeated in it, aside from the one defeat he has, doesn't count. But, whoever becomes champ is going to know that they're not going to be the champ John Jones was unless he comes back down, they fight him and beat him. So that sucks for them. But like you said, him making the move to heavyweight needed to happen because we've seen him at light heavyweight. There's no one in light heavyweight that poses a big threat like there is at heavyweight. There's no light heavyweight that hits as hard as Ngannou, right? And I think that's the fight everyone wants to see. And fortunately, what I see happening here is they do Stipe versus Ngannou too. And then after that one, granted there's no huge injuries or whatever, like start of next year probably. Yeah, probably the start of the next year or in the first few months of next year, we get John Jones versus the winner of that for the heavyweight title. I cannot see him fighting when there's no title on the line. Unless DC wanted to come back, but that would be so stupid of DC to come back to fight Jones at heavyweight after taking all that damage to his eye and whatever. So I think we see him fight for the title against the winner of Stipe and Ngannou.
But where do you go from there if you lose? That's the point. It's like I wouldn't be that surprised if he took a tester fight at heavyweight, maybe against someone like Derek Lewis. I know he's just been matched up, but if we're talking about 2021, that's a good name. It's you can adjust to the heavyweight division, you can get paid. I wouldn't be surprised to see him take that, but then at the same time, I do think what you're saying is most likely he'll go straight into a title shot. And I'm just thinking who he would prefer to fight. I think he might prefer to fight Stipe than Ngannou because he does like to strike John Jones, and there's not really going to be room to strike it at all with Ngannou. I just don't think he's going to be able to keep him at the end of the job. He's going to have to clinch him and try and take him down as Stipe did. And it's an interesting time. Very excited, for the heavyweight division. It's coming back to life now. I do feel we've had that nice trilogy. You've got Ngannou waiting on the sidelines. You've got a few contenders under him. Then you've got the addition of John Jones. So for a while, it hasn't been the best division, but I think it's coming back now. I'm excited to see John Jones in it.
Yeah, well, speaking about light heavyweight and getting that one back to its glory it used to be in, the biggest news that I saw this week regarding the division in general was Anthony Johnson re-entering the USADA pool Rumble. He's going to come back as light heavyweight, which a lot of people thought he was going to come back as a heavyweight. So for him to come back as a light heavyweight, it's a little odd. Well, not odd, just didn't see it coming. But now that Jones is gone and DC's gone, I'm picking Rumble to be the champion. He had one problem in that division, and it was DC. That was his only problem. DC was the only person at light heavyweight to beat him from memory, and it was a rear naked choke both times. Now DC's gone, Jones is gone. He'll probably get a top 5 opponent in his first fight back. I think he can be champion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. He can. It was just odd time. It actually made me laugh a bit because he'd been speaking about fighting John Jones for so long. John Jones says I'm leaving, and then he's back straight away. So it's just funny timing on that one. I'm sure it was in the works anyway. But I think if he comes back the same as he was, there's no doubt in my mind he can be champion. Quite easy. I think he could knock all these guys out. In the first or second round, he's that powerful because. But then after that, what's he going to be like down the stretch? 5 rounds against these guys who, they're not bad fighters. Reyes, in some people's eyes, he beat John Jones. So he's clearly a good fighter. He's a tall fighter. He's a dangerous fighter. And then Blachowicz, and there's a few other guys as well. So it's it's interesting. Maybe the guy who just beat Volkan against Rumble for his first fight back, that would be fun.
Jerry Prodkowski.
Yeah, maybe him. That would be fun. I think Rumble would knock him out because he's a bit too easy to hit. But there's still about 6 months. He's got to be in the testing pool anyway. So we've got a little while to wait and come up with some good matchups. And I'm sure in that time the whole light heavyweight landscape will change. He might actually just go straight in for a title shot. You never know. But it's an exciting division, and what you've got is 2 divisions improving overnight. In my opinion, you've got the light heavyweight division. It's fresh. It's got new talent coming in Anthony Johnson, or old talent coming back, and then John Jones stepping up to heavyweight and just adding another dimension to that division. It's exciting times.
Yeah, just while we're on the topic of Jiri Prochazka, which is his name, if I believe, Corey Anderson was talking about his move to Bellator, and he said the UFC offered him Jiri Prochazka, and he turned it down because the money wasn't right. But I told you that was the fight they were going to offer that dude. I told you he's going to get offered Corey Anderson, and I'm glad that he didn't get that fight because I think Anderson would probably just ragdolled him. But now he's in Bellator, so move on from that one. What else have we got here? Korean Zombie Ortega confirmed for October 17th. I think we all saw this coming. There was so much drama behind their little matchup. They've tried to book it twice now, and finally it's got a date. All best of luck this actually happens because I think we both want to see it. I'm probably taking Ortega in this one. What do you think?
I just edge Korean Zombie just because he's fresh. Like he's fought lately, and Ortega since that Holloway loss, he's been on the missing list. So I never like these long layoffs. I don't think they're good for a fighter. And hopefully we see top tier Ortega, because that last loss was a bad loss. It was start to finish domination. So there is things to work on for Ortega, and to come back against Korean Zombie, who's a beast. It's tough. It's tough for anyone, and if he managed to pull it off, he'll be worthy of a title shot. And if Korean Zombie beats him, I think he's worthy of a title shot. I think whoever wins this is getting Volkanovski next, and just excited to see it. I think it'll be a fun fight either way. I just do give Zombie the edge just because he's been a bit active. He's looked good lately.
Yeah, I agree. The winner of this will get a title shot for sure. Last one before we wrap it up. Curtis Blade books against Derek Lewis. I think this, like I said when we spoke about it briefly before, it's either going to be a great fight where Curtis Blades decides, I'm going to try and stand with him and I'm going to try and put him away, or it's going to be a boring 5-round wrestle fest where maybe he finds a submission like in the third or second. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I hate this fight. I just think it's going to be that. It's going to be wrestling domination. I just don't see how Derek Lewis can prevent it. Mm-hmm. I don't see Curtis Blades being stupid enough, and it would be stupid to try and stand with Derek Lewis because he's a dangerous guy. I don't see him stupid enough to try and stand. I would much prefer, Curtis Blades go and do something else, and Derek Lewis maybe fight over him or someone like that. I don't love this fight at all. But we've got it, and hopefully it's fun. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I honestly do not want to see this fight.
Understandable. With that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll speak to you after the fights to break down all the action.